sharing your body. My husband is just going to crawl out of the room on the floor behind me. Okay, so real life going on here. Yeah, so we're going to de-chair your body. I won't be showing you different ways of sitting today, Patrick, but I will be de-chairing your body through a fascial stretch. Just 1 second. So when I say de-chair, I mean undoing the stiffness that accumulates in your body from sitting during the day. And that's usually your knees, your hips, your lower back, and specifically your neck. The stretches we're doing today are very gentle and they're optional. And I'm going to give you a few different options through the class, through the session. You might have got the note about using a chair for this, or a book, which is about 6 or 7 centimeters thick, will be fantastic. If you're near a kitchen sink, even better, because the kitchen sink is perfect for a fascial stretch. But if you don't have the kitchen sink handy, we're going to use a chair instead. So just a little brief intro to fascia in case you don't know what it is. So fascia is basically connective tissue. It's all over your body, and there's different forms of fascia. Some of it is bigger or thicker, and some of it is thinner. The one we're working on today is superficial fascia. So it's very thin. It's just underneath your skin. And I'd like you to think of it as literally underneath your skin. So wherever you have skin in your body, your fascia is just underneath that. And I often compare it to like a Spider-Man suit. So if you imagine you're wearing a Spider-Man suit, it's all over your body. It's all over your face as well. Fingers, toes, everywhere. But this Spider-Man suit is not made of Lycra. This Spider-Man suit is made of spider webs. You can imagine kind of spider webs all over your body. And if spider webs freak you out, think of cotton candy instead, or cotton floss. So it's matrix all over your body of this material that makes up this Spider-Man suit. And now I want you to imagine that the Spider-Man suit is wet. It's glistening moist. There's dewdrops all over this spider web, okay? And that means that the Spider-Man suit is able to glide and move really well when you move as well. The problem is we don't move very well anymore. We don't move very often, and we don't move with variety. So this Spider-Man suit gets dehydrated and matted. It's a bit like candy floss that you've stood on. You know, it's very matted and it's like hair that has knots in it. It's not going to move very well. So if you think about your Spider-Man suit, I'll just stand up for a second here. And instead of gliding well, you've got some tightness, for example, in the front of your hip. If this is tight, this fabric here, imagine your Spider-Man suit being tight, it can actually pull on your shoulder as well. Even though your hip seems like a million miles away from your hip, your hip is a million miles from your shoulder, it's connected through the fascia. So you could have that line of tension there, which makes a lot of sense when you're sitting. But what's also tight in your Spider-Man suit is the whole back line of your body when you sit for a long time. So the back line goes, and I'll just adjust this so you can see my feet properly. Yeah, the back line of your fascia starts at the sole of your feet. So if you imagine there's a red line here, sole of your feet, up your calves, hamstrings, lower back, all the way up your back, through your neck, and then ends at your eyebrows. So the fascial stretch today might have given you a facelift. You'll notice literally something different in your face, even though we haven't worked on your face at all, okay? So we'll start off with a bit of an assessment. Again, it's completely optional. This assessment involves just kind of rolling down towards the floor. If you have a pain or a problem with your back, you can leave this out. I'm going to do a second assessment straight after. But if you're okay to roll forward, you're literally just letting yourself roll forward. We're not aiming at touching the toes. That's not it. Imagine you're a marionette, you've cut your strings, and you're just letting yourself kind of fold forward. You're not collapsing. And just fold as far as feels comfortable forward. And just kind of notice what that feels like. Maybe you feel tension in your hamstrings, in your lower back, your neck, or maybe one arm is longer than the other. Just kind of take note of what that feels like. And if it's sore in your back, feel free to bend your knees. Just kind of notice how much you're bending your knees. You may not even be able to hang your head. Your head might be kind of stuck in this position. So just make a note of that as well. And then we'll come out of that. Okay, so now we'll go on to the second assessment where you're going to need a book, which is 6 or 7 centimeters thick. I used to say telephone book, but nobody knows what that is anymore. So I'm using this foam roller here that I've cut up into 6 little bits, but you can just use a book. Okay, so I'm going to place that on the floor. You're standing up, ideally no shoes on, no socks on, ideally. And you're going to put your left ball of your foot on the foam or the book, and your left heel is on the ground. Your right foot is parallel. Okay, and then you're going to start to move your right foot slightly forward, until you feel a kind of a stretch in your left calf. So your left heel stays on the ground. Make sure it doesn't lift off, it stays on the ground. And then holding this position, just turn your head from side to side, and you'll actually feel a stretch in your calf. You're moving your head, but you're going to feel something in your calf. And that's the back line of your fascia. So you can see how your neck and your calf is connected, and the tighter your calf, the more pressure you're going to have in your neck. In fact, it's like a whiplash scenario. Every time you take a step, you create a little whiplash effect in your neck if your calves are tight. Okay, so come out of that, take a few steps and just notice how your left calf feels. You might feel a bit strained already. You might feel a bit like you're lopsided. And we'll just try the other side. So this time your right foot is on the book or the block. Your right heel is on the ground. And if your calves are very tight, you may start back here to keep your right heel on the floor. Maybe you're parallel, maybe you're slightly forward. Go to a spot where you feel a bit of tension in your back of your right calf. You can move your head again and see maybe it's tighter on this side, maybe it's okay. Also check if you're compensating. You might have taken a really big step while you're standing to attention. This isn't great for your alignment in general. So relax your breastbone down. You may have to take a smaller step, which is crushing for your ego, okay? But it's a much better stretch for your calf. And then notice also, maybe you're leaning forward like you're on the ski Olympics going down the hill. You don't want to do that. You are tall, but you're not standing to attention. All right, so take a few steps. See what that looks like, what it feels like in your calf, and maybe your neck is starting to ease up already. So just doing the calf stretch is a fantastic neck stretch. We're going to do some work now using the chair. We're going to be folding over. If you don't want to do the chair work, stick with the calf stretch. You can keep swapping left, right throughout the class. You'll get the same benefit for your neck. Otherwise, grab your chair or your kitchen sink and put your hands on the edge of the chair and just kind of take a few steps back and allow yourself to round your back. So you can see my back is not straight here. I'm deliberately rounding my back, resting my hands on the chair. You can also do this on your hands and knees, going into a cat stretch kind of position. And we will be alternating that with the cow position as well. So if you prefer to be on the floor, feel free to stay on the floor. But otherwise, your hands are on the chair and you're going into that kind of cat position. So your back is curled. And make sure that you're not leaning on the chair. So if you take your hands away, you shouldn't fold forward. Okay, it's not a press up. Yeah, you've got your hips ideally behind your ankles and you're in a curled position. And you might start to feel some kind of stretch going on here. Maybe you don't, that's fine. But you are stretching your back line because you're bending that line that goes from the soles of your feet, go the back of your body, over the top of your head, down to your eyebrows. Okay, so from here, imagine you're doing that cow position. So the tailbone is now riding up towards the ceiling, and then go back to the cow. See if you can do that. If you can't get movement here, you could go back onto the floor, hands and knees, and do the exercise I just showed on your hands and knees. But if you can do it standing, give it a go. Usually if the option is standing, you're more likely to do it, particularly if you're waiting for the kettle to boil and the kitchen sink is just beside you. So we'll do maybe 3 more of these, and it should be enjoyable. I hope it is. It's not no pain, no gain. That is insane when it comes to fascia. You want this to be luxurious, just like when you get up in the morning and stretch. It doesn't feel like a chore when you stretch in the morning. It feels really good. So if it doesn't feel good, make the movement smaller or make it slower. Okay, we'll come out of that. Go for a little walk and see if you're starting to feel a little bit taller. Maybe your neck feels a bit freer. And we'll go on to the second version. So again, you can stay with the book if you want to keep stretching your calves. We're going to try something similar, but this time we're going forward with a straight back. So for that, you want to be bending here in the groin area. If you put your hands into the groin like a karate chop move and put pressure there, that's a reminder that that's where you fold. You're not folding here at the rib cage like we did last time. You're folding here at the hips like a Barbie doll. So Barbie doll doesn't bend at the rib cage, just fold forward. You might not fold as far, but that's fine. It's not about touching your toes or anything. Just leaning forward so you feel like your back is straight. And here we're going to try a part of that cat and cow again. So you're tucking under your pelvis and then you're letting it go back up, tucking under your pelvis and letting it go back up. But your ribs are not moving. So if you were on your hands and knees, it would look like this. It's just your pelvis is tucking under and lifting. Yeah, it's much smaller than the cat cow we did it a minute ago. And you may not be able to do this breakup, but if you can, try to keep your ribs still and just move your pelvis. You might move a little bit less than before. That's fine. You're still stretching your back line. If you prefer to the cat cow again, go on to that. Do a couple more here. And come out of that. Take a walk again. See if you're starting to feel taller. Your neck is loosening up. Maybe your calves feel a bit different. Okay, so we'll do a slight different version now. For this one, you can either go straight back or curve back, it doesn't matter. Put your hands onto your chair again or your kitchen sink, and legs can be a bit wider than your hips. And you're just going to bend one knee and then bend the other. This works more into your lower back. It goes diagonally up the back side of your lower back. And you can press, if you bend your right knee, press your left foot into the floor. Bend your left knee, push your right foot into the floor. And you can, again, I want you to enjoy the stretch. It should feel luxurious. So go to the angle that feels okay for you. Keep breathing. Make sure you're not holding your breath. And if you're at the kitchen sink now, this is where it really comes into its own. You can hang out of the kitchen sink. If you've got your hands on your windowsill, you could hang out of the kitchen sink and you get even more luxurious fascia stretch. So you're bending. Notice if your knees go together, can you keep them parallel? And you can try that with both knees bent as well. So it looks a bit like a mini squat. Notice if your knees bang together or if they go apart, can you keep them parallel? It doesn't have to be big. It's about feeling kind of a stretch along your back line. Okay, come out of that. Go the opposite direction now. Go for a little walk. See how that feels. Okay, so now you have the option of putting it all together. So on the floor, this looks like hands and knees. And you can do cat-cow. You can do pelvis only. You can roll your shoulders. You can rotate your body. There's nothing right or wrong with fascia. You're just letting yourself follow what your body wants to do and where it wants to stretch. When you're standing up with your chair, I like to bend one knee and kind of rotate my body around. Either side, you can do a curl back, you can do a straight back, you can twist, you can push one foot into the floor, and then the other. If you're hanging on the kitchen sink, you can really go for it by hanging into this weight. You can even go onto your tippy toes and mess around with that. And the tippy toes will allow you to twirl a little bit more to each side. All right. Come out of that. Turn your head from side to side, see what that feels like. And then we'll go back to the original assessment. So that was just standing on your mat, whatever you did at the start. Imagine you cut your strings again on your marionette. And you're just letting yourself roll forward. You're not reaching for anything. You're not trying for anything, but you may be a bit further than you were before. I'm now touching my toes, which I didn't do before. And I'm not trying to do this. I've just released the back line. Things have relaxed and it's allowed my muscles to move. Also, my head is hanging a little bit further down, a little bit more relaxed. You can slowly come out of that again. If you want to check it with your foot on the prop, you can see if it's eased up any at all. To let your head go more from side to side. I use these props at all my sinks, so it's a handy tip if you have tight calves, which most of us do. It's a really handy way to add in a calf stretch to your day. Every time you use your sink, you're going to do a calf stretch. So handy little tip to bring the stretch in through the rest of the day. I hope you enjoyed that. You survived that okay? Grab some water.
That was awesome, Annette. Thank you. I went out for a run today and I didn't stretch afterwards because I had meetings and then I had to go for a walk and then I had meetings and then I had things. and I can feel a difference. So
Great.
yeah.
You're very welcome.
I had very tight calves when I came in.
Yeah.
They're actually loosened up quite a bit now since that. But that's just me, and it's not only about me. So I'm going to remove the spotlight and see, is anybody else got any questions for or feedback or anything? Sharon just said that she so needed that, and thank you, Annette, for that. And thanks, Sharon, for sharing. Absolutely. So any questions or anything, just raise your hand, either your real hand or, you know, the hand you can raise. Jada has a question, I think. Jada, you have raised your hand. Go ahead. Jada, you're on mute.
Thank you very much. Take two. Annette, that was awesome. I really love fascial work, and I've put it on the long finger for so long to actually learn about fascial trains. So you definitely taught me something today, that it extended all the way to the eyebrows. I didn't know it went that far.
Yeah.
There are like kind of bits and pieces that I know about fascial work, but I'd love to pick your brain sometime about fascia. I've been telling people for like 5 years now that fascia is like cling film. Would you say it's like that, or have I got it wrong?
Yeah, I would say it's like wet cling film. I like the idea.
Yeah.
I get the idea of I like 2 layers of cling film gliding over each other, and the wetter they are, the better things going to move.
Yeah, and the more
The way
dehydrated
we
you
move,
are.
yeah, the way we move, it's like you've taken the air out. It's like what's that word? Freezer packed. Like it's that, yeah. So there'll be
Vacuum
parts of your
sealed.
body that are freezer packed because you aren't moving them very well, or you're over moving them as well. That dehydrates too. So if you're always sitting, you're always jogging, you're always just doing one motion, that can dehydrate as well.
Yeah. Would this, what you did today, would that be good for something like compartment syndrome?
What's that exactly?
It's like a condition of the calf, where people get like really tight, painful calves.
Well, yes, I would say it's always, well, the whole thing with fascia is it should be kind of that enjoyable factor. So it's not about pain. Everybody has to find their angle and their rotation that feels good for them.
Mm-hmm.
And every muscle is surrounded with the fascia. And in fact, they're saying that a lot of pain is coming from the fascia now, not from the muscle. So 10 times the amount of sensors, you probably know that, in fascia than in the muscle. So could very well be that working on your fascia would work. May not be necessarily stretched like this, but even rolling the fascia gently, you know, with a peanut roller from Franklin method or a soft roller, I would go that route.
Okay.
But we
Awesome.
can chat after as well, yeah.
Yeah. So no, I love it because
let's
like
chat
this.
later.
Cool. Yeah, connect with each other. Fantastic. That's what we're all about here. Yeah. Thanks, Jada. Thanks for that. Thanks, Annette. I have Mossy's hand up and Hans's hand up. Mossy, go ahead.
Just really quick, I'm not 100% sure if your IT band is an insertion into a fascia. I could be right, but I remember, or I see, and I used to do it as well from playing football and stuff, but I used to do it where I'd be rolling, I'd be concentrating on the IT band, which is literally from the hip down.
Yeah.
And then it was brought to my attention that it's not actually, that's not what I should actually be rolling, that it should be more on the fascia, which is an insertion of sort to the muscle, which is pulling the IT band just like a belt. If you ever got a belt and flipped it and just you hear that snap.
Right.
So the IT band, and I was getting like dry needling and everything, and as soon as the needles would go in, they would just literally go straight down. So they literally just go, and like the guy, the physio would be like, or the therapist would be like, wow, like your IT band is rock solid. So I was advised more like a tennis ball or something to get into the glute. Well,
there's 2 kind of camps on that. So the training I've done is superficial, and that's the latest understanding, is that you go at it really gently. You don't do the deep tissue tennis ball like an elbow in your body kind of thing. You're using very soft rollers to regenerate and encourage a regeneration of fascia, because you're regenerating fascia all the time. I think it takes a year to regenerate half all your fascia. Sometimes when you do the deep aggressive stuff, the fascia can react to that and become more matted. So the approach will be more gentle. So gentle stretches using soft rollers. So you can get softer rollers than the regular kind of concrete ones you get in the gym. None of the nodules or any of that, really, really soft. I can send links for that. Patrick's happy with that. Yeah, but it definitely should work. And then there's also the argument, is IT band fascia or not? Some people would say that is fascia in itself, but everything is covered with fascia. So if you go at the site and maybe go near it but not on it, that can also have a huge benefit rather than actually going to the place of pain. So working up above and below the actual point.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. Yeah, no, I love that. And it's kind of like these things when you're like 10 years later and people say like what you're telling me now. And I kind of intuitively knew when I was running and everyone was doing the foam rollers and hurting themselves and driving themselves into pain. And I wasn't. And I kept running just as fast and as long as they did. Like, so it's funny.
Yeah.
But thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And
You're welcome.
I love it that there's a scientific basis now, the fact that I go like, no, you don't need foam rollers. Okay. So thanks for that. Hans, you had a question. Go ahead.
Well, a comment rather than a question. But first of all, I loved your explanation, the way you used your sweater or your top to know that the problem may be down at the bottom, but actually the issue is really up at the top. There's a lady called Lauren Keller who's part of our networking group. She does structural integration, which basically is fascial work, and that's how I have sort of learned from her that the muscle massage is great, but over the years that our muscles have formed a particular shape, the fascia shapes around it. So she has a wonderful picture of a person looking like this before and like that afterwards, because the fascia is now released, so the muscles can release back.
Yeah.
But I loved your explanation, Annette. And she can't call herself Rolfer because it's Ida Rolf, the biochemist.
Yeah.
Who did all of that work initially, but she can't call herself a structural integrator. So I definitely refer lots of people to her, especially if they've gone through an operation. Quite a few of my clients have gone through a hip operation, and they find incredible relief. Even though their surgeon says don't do anything for the first 2 weeks, they find a lot of relief in the releasing the fascia. Anyway, just a comment.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, the latest studies have fascial experts going in with surgeons at the same time. So when the surgeon's working on a tennis elbow, the fascial expert can go in and manipulate the fascia very gently, and they're having way more much better results than just the surgeon on their own.
Fantastic. Thanks, Hans, for that. Thanks, Annette. I have one more question by Svetlana. Lena, go ahead.
Hey, Annette. When I was following your instructions and doing the exercises, I noticed that the only one that I struggled with was actually the initial one with the book, because this is where I felt it in the calves. Yes. So I know that I have like kind of well-developed muscles down there because I was involved in karate training during my teenagehood. But obviously now, because I'm not actively exercising, that's giving it's effects in the opposite way. What can I do to release that? Because like the cat cow back and all the others were pretty easy for me, and I didn't feel any tension. It was just down there.
Down there. Okay. So, well, the calf stretch, the one I showed you with the book, you can do that multiple times. You can't really overdo the calf stretch. As I said, I put a book in front of all my sinks. So every time I wash my hands, I'm doing a calf stretch. I do it with 2 feet on the book, 2 heels on the ground. So you go 2 at one time, or you could do one after the other. Like wash your hands with 1 foot, dry your hands with the other foot. Just make it into your routine. Every time you do it 10, 20 times a day, it's going to really happen, because your body will adjust to what you do the most frequently, not necessarily the most intensely. So if you do calf exercise 10 minutes a day, that's fantastic. But if you spend the rest of the day shortening your calf by sitting at a desk, wearing shoes, not walking much, then you're kind of undoing the exercises you did. The exercises are great, keep doing them, but then sprinkle the other stretches through your day as much as you can. Also, rolling helps. Rolling your calves on a foam roller can be really helpful too.
Awesome. Thank you. So you can keep doing that exercise that we did, Svetlana, isn't that? That's great news. So thanks for sharing that, Annette.